You picked the wrong guys to mess with, you megavirus maniacs. Deluxe Servo, Deluxe Drago, and Deluxe Xenon. Samurais, for your protection.
SSSS.Gridman, which, for the record, for the rest of this video, I am just going to be calling Gridman, because I can never remember how many S's it is, which I'm pretty sure everybody already knows, but the 4 S's is a reference to the American Power Rangerification of the original show called Dengeki Chojin Gridman, and the American version being Super Samurai Cyber Squad. So, there's that little Easter eggy tidbit. Gridman is one of the better animes this season, in my opinion, right up there with Part 5 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I want to talk about it. But I think in order to really talk about what I want to talk about, which are how they reuse Tokusatsu techniques in order to make a more proper anime, we need to break down Tokusatsu and the original inspirations for Gridman. So, let's rewind the clock all the way back to 1966, where Ultraman first premiered, specifically July 17th, 1966. Ultraman being a sort of spiritual spin-off sequel kind of thing to a show called Ultra Q, which was kind of sci-fi anthology with giant monsters, you know, that kind of pretty typical stuff. Now, Ultraman, along with the preeminent classic Godzilla and the other classic Kamen Rider, are what I would like to consider like the 3 main pillars of Tokusatsu technique. You have the variety branches in those 3 properties in and of itself. With Godzilla, you have the pure kaiju. With Kamen Rider, you have the hero henshin and all that kind of stuff. And Ultraman's a nice blend of the 2 techniques. And with these 3 pillars, they solidified and codified all the different concepts and techniques and cliches that permeate Tokusatsu to this day. But this isn't Ultraman, this is Gridman. So what's a Gridman? Well, Gridman, or Dengeki Chojin Gridman, first aired April 3rd, 1993, and it's sort of a semi-spin-off, sort of kind of alt-world version of Ultraman, where instead of fighting giant monsters in regular space, they fight it in cyberspace, that kind of stuff. And it was the last non-Ultraman based superhero show made by the production company. So, nice little pin in that idea, too. And years later, Trigger made an anime sequel and eventually anime reboot with SSSS.Gridman. I got the right number of S's there. So, I want to look at the first episode and kind of showcase the Tokusatsu techniques that they use in animation in order to get that real visceral feeling of Tokusatsu. And so you can pay attention to Tokusatsu, the real version, and start to see these techniques for what they are and appreciate them. But, again, before I can do that, brief summary of Gridman. Yuta is the main character. He has amnesia. Can't remember shit. Kaiju attacks. And Gridman basically says, yo, I need you to, like, fuse with me so we can fight the Kaiju. And Yuta basically goes like, alright, I got nothing better to do. I'd rather do that than be squish. Tokusatsu is literally special effects in Japanese. So anything that can be special effects is considered part of Tokusatsu, but the typical aesthetic of Tokusatsu can be summed up with some of these techniques. First things first is probably the most obvious technique used in Tokusatsu, and that would be the use of scale. Now, we've seen this all the time with kaiju with scale sets, making the person in the suit look immense and imposing. It adds to the size of the monsters as well as giant heroes and robots that would fight them. However, because of the real-world creation of these scaled sets, the materials cannot be fully replicated. Because of that, the set gives an air of a kid playing, not in a bad way, just more in a verisimilitude of the environment. You know that this is a scale set, and thus this is scale models. Take, for example, the cars. Cars in real life have what is called a crumple zone. Basically, this is an area of a car that, when in crash or collision, will crumple like an accordion in order to protect the driver safely. Now, when trying to create a scale car, you can't really create the crumple zones accurately. So oftentimes, also due to expenses, cars are just made out of the solid material, whether that be metal or plastic or whatever they decide to use for the scale model. So, solid materials tends to bounce more, and when a actor portraying a giant monster kicks said cars, they will bounce around, similar to how they animated it in Gridman. It's nice attention to detail that really shows that they're trying to accomplish this aesthetic in more than just a superficial manner. And that goes on to the kaiju design as well. First off, the color pattern looks and feels like it. It looks like it was airbrushed, like you would do on costume foam. It doesn't look like an animator made it. It looks like, well, of course, a monster designer made it, which is what really happened. Also take note of the hump on the back for a human head to fit in for the suit actor. The fake head also has dead eyes, and the mouth only moves when the creature moves, really giving off that real-life prop feel to the character and the monster that they could have easily not have done because it's animated. They could have went like, no, let's animate some eyeballs and the eyes moving and make it feel more alive, but they didn't. It really brings to attention how Tokusatsu looks. And I personally think that that's a big part of why a lot of people like Tokusatsu. Also, quick little side note, I just love this weird little detail in the first monster, because it is shown that this is a monster designed by a person making a model, basically, essentially. And I really like how the monster's claws and horns appear as if they are paper clips that the person used to basically make claws out of. And it's really kind of a neat attention to detail to show that these are handmade creatures within this universe. And also just the monster in episode 2, which I'm not really talking about, but the monster in episode 2 also appears to me, at least, as if it could be part of a kit bash. Like, they took a Gundam model kit and shaved the panels in order to make their own creature. I think that's an interesting concept, and if that was the intention, sweet. If not, either way, it's a delightful monster design. I love its kind of googly eyes. Now, another major technique used in Tokusatsu is frame manipulation. See, typically, film is projected at 24 frames a second. We all typically know this. But Tokusatsu does the same thing, but is often filmed, at least for the action scenes, at 30 frames per second at a faster rate. So that when it is played back at 24 frames, the movements feel more slow and labored, as if they are these really giant creatures. You can really notice this. I don't think they purposefully animated in 30 frames and then scaled it back. I think they just took the time to replicate that feel, especially when the creature is walking throughout the town, and when Gridman falls through his portal and lands on the ground. It really has that labored feel that the frame manipulation often gives with Tokusatsu. It's, again, just beautiful attention to detail that I really, really appreciate. But with any techniques, there are limitations, and because this is animation, they don't have to use all the limitations at the hands of Tokusatsu. Most notably is camera angles. Due to how these sets are built, you often can't get interesting camera angles, because where are you going to put the camera? So you get a lot of wide shots, a couple close-ups, but you can't get a variety of cinematography. But because this is animation and they can put the camera wherever the damn well they please, they decided to give us more point of view shots, just kind of seeing more scale of these creatures. Also, because there are no actors being impeded by physical costume, the action can be more fluid, as if these are actual creatures. So, Gridman is amazing. It's great, and I am just in love with the series so far. I am a giant fan. And I really hope that this show really takes off, because it's just a great love letter to Tokusatsu, and I just hope this makes a ton of anime fans want to try Tokusatsu out. Alright, so that was my video on Gridman. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, do all the YouTube things. They're there. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Boingo_writer. If you want to join my Discord, the link is in the description. And if you want to hear me in a podcast, I am in one with another YouTuber called The Vacuuminator on Modular Media. Again, link is in the description. We basically talk about a piece of media or concept for a given length in podcast form. So that's there if you want it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you later.